Welcome to the 24th Annual Miami Jewish Film Festival, one of the world's largest and oldest Jewish cultural arts events. We want to thank all of our members, sponsors, community partners, volunteers, all of you film lovers, and especially our presenting sponsors, the Center for the Advancement of Jewish Education, SAGE, and the Greater Miami Jewish Federation for their continued support throughout all these years. My name is Mary Jane Rochelson, and I'm a professor emerita of English at Florida International University, where I'm also affiliated with the programs in Jewish Studies, Holocaust and Genocide Studies, and Women's and Gender Studies. I have introduced 3 films in previous years for the Miami Jewish Film Festival, and I am especially excited today to be moderating a virtual conversation with Tzipi Trope, writer, director, and producer of the film My Dearest Enemy, which is premiering at this year's festival. Thank you all for joining us. Tzipi, to start off, yeah, it's wonderful to meet you. Please, thank you. Please tell us something about yourself, where you're from, where you are now, how you got to be a film writer, producer, director, etc. Anything that you think we should know.
Well, I was born in Israel. And I grew up in Israel, and I did my undergrad in the BA in Tel Aviv University in music, and then I decided to go with my husband to University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and I did my master and PhD in film and television, and then I went back to Israel, and so since then I am teaching. I taught at Columbia University in the film division. Now I'm teaching. I'm associate art professor at Tisch NYU. And I'm here at New York 6 months, and then I'm in Israel 6 months, where I make my films, and I'm with my family, and where I breathe the best. So that's it. And then when I started my master's degree, I thought I would be an editor, I must admit, because I thought it's nice for a woman, to be an editor and 9 to 6, whatever. And so that's what my mother told me, you better get something that you can still have children and be married, And then I just wanted everything. So I did my PhD, and then I started to work for the Israeli television. But I found out because, I had children, I was married young, that I cannot just sleep in different sets. So actually I started to write my own scripts. And then I did a co-production with Canada for HBO, which I wrote and directed. But in the last, I don't know, maybe 15 years or something, I'm also producing everything because it's much easier for me. Besides the subject matters that I choose to tell my stories are lately are not so popular in the terms that most fans hesitate to give more money to the Holocaust films and the conflict. And this is what actually I'm doing, except I dealt with battered women, but actually most of the films were about the Holocaust and the conflict. And because I don't have patience to wait for money, I think, it's really a waste of time. So I moved from documentaries to feature films. So documentaries, I just go by myself. I have my own documentaries. I go without crew. I just go, and then I don't even look for money. Then I get usually a first-time editor, which I don't have to pay much, and then I usually get money just for post-production, which is the editing. In feature films, it's more complicated, as we know. So usually so I did a lot of documentaries, but the features, which I did 5 or 6, you need some fund to give you money. And so we have public funds in Israel. So I did get for my last film My Dearest Enemy from the Israeli film, quality films, um, but it was not enough. So I, like my students, I did Indiegogo, which is a
Oh, yes,
fundraising.
sure.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Which is okay with me. I mean, as long as I can do my films, I don't really care.
Hmm.
But the film was, when I wrote it, it was probably for a kind of okay budget in Israel, like, I don't know, close to 1 million. But I ended up rewriting it, and I did it for like $140,000, which is
Wow.
fine with me. As
That's
long as,
amazing.
so in the rewriting, what was important for me, of course, is that I can still tell the story. If the budget would have been too low, I would not make it. But I
Mhm.
did other films. I did Tel Aviv, Berlin about the Holocaust, also for that budget. Um, I did about battered women. It was a little bit more, 300,000. But I'm telling you that because, um, you know, it's I cannot be without films. I mean,
Mhm.
I must be, so I find a way, even it's an independent, or so I don't care if it's a low budget or high budget. It's really, um, if I can tell the story. Um,
Mhm.
so in this film, I had a very small crew. I had like actually three professionals. Of course, a DP, the cameraman, and the sound, which are very
Mhm.
important, and
Mhm.
then the makeup and the hair, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and then the rest, it was either students or people with less experience. And it
Mhm.
was a small crew.
Mhm.
And I'm not here to complain. I'm here to celebrate because it was a joy. I drove the crew. Many times I went and picked up the food. I was my own location manager, which means I looked at the location, found them, and um, so, but it's a joy to make a film. And I don't know who our audience, but I think at any age, if you decide that this is what you want to do, you'll do it by hook and by crook. And
Mhm.
today with the digital equipments, you
Mhm.
know, for me, it's a bit difficult because I love films, it's celluloid, right?
Mhm.
Like we used to do. But
Yeah.
now it's like a luxury. I think only Steven Spielberg kind of people can do on film. So now, actually, even you, if you decide you want to tell a story, either documentary or a fiction, go ahead and do it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that what you have just said will be extremely encouraging to people who are thinking about going into filmmaking, because to think that this really fantastic movie was made with a small crew on a low budget, it certainly doesn't look like that.
No, no,
And I
you
think,
have to be careful, really. I mean, I don't
yeah,
encourage a low budget film to look low budget.
uh,
I think
right,
it's
right.
distracting.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
No, it's
That's what
not.
I'm saying.
If you're gonna do
And
the best quality, don't do it.
absolutely, absolutely. But, people might be thinking about what kind of investment, et cetera, that you need to make. But I want to go on to another question. You mentioned that films about the conflict, meaning the conflict between Jewish Israelis and Palestinians, is not a popular topic anymore. People don't want to see films about it.
It's worse
But
than
you,
that. It's
yeah,
not in the conversation.
okay. So you decided you would make this film about that topic now. Can you talk to us about why you felt it was important to do that?
Well, first of all, I'm trying to do it quite a bit, and it was not easy because it's
Mhm.
like, first of all, friendship between two women, Arab and Jewish, not under the, I don't know, umbrella of politics like Peace Now
Mhm.
movement or Women in Black or whatever.
Mhm.
Those are two kids who met when they were
Yeah.
14. The Israeli didn't know she's an Arab. She didn't care she's an Arab. Both of them live in a neighborhood in Jerusalem, which is half Abu Tor, it's half Jewish, half Arab. And they just were two girls meeting in a ballet studio and they became friends.
Mhm.
And a bond was created between them, a really very strong one, like, like it happens to everybody. And the people in Israel were in charge of that. A lot of them said, but this is utopia. This is
Mhm.
not real. because most friendship starts, when they are 20, 30, and they start to join those groups. But um, so it was very difficult to get the money. I waited for a long time. And the problem is, which I'm afraid to, I'm saying it, and I'm not very happy, but this topic is not on the table. There is no conversation anymore. Like people don't want to talk about it. You see, now we're going to have an election. It's not really, now because Biden is here and they started to just hint that he would like to go back to, let's say, the two
Two-state solution.
the solution, two countries, two-state solution. It's nothing to do if we are right or we are left. I don't care about it because when you do a film, any film, you try to understand the complexity. It's not that you want to come with a preconceived idea, one-sided, probe this, probe that. That's not interesting. What's interesting, both documentaries and fiction, if you come with a question, what you're trying to understand about what you're writing.
Right.
So for me, it was really kind of a friendship like this exists with everything it's around. So it's nothing to do for me left, right, because the conflict really affect our life. Every mother who send her kid to the army, what happens to them in the army, um, you know, I think we are like all post-traumatic. We all have this deep fear that we carry with us, and some cultivate it. We know that, but it affects us as a society and as people. But it's not on the table. It's not a conversation.
Yeah.
So, and then you have, of course, Israeli Arabs. It's not just Palestinian, in the West Bank. But as far as there is something. There's Israeli citizens, and it's a very complex issue also for them with their identification, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say that people think, oh, she made a film about friendship between Arab and Jewish. She is probably a leftist. I mean, this is not even the way to look at
Right.
any work
Yeah.
of art, but but even we are entitled. We must ask questions about either ourselves or the world around us, and we cannot just dismiss it. It's easy
Yeah.
and say, well, we are tired of it, we don't want to talk about it. And I did mention to you that in a way, it's also about the Holocaust. You will hear a lot, okay, we heard enough. I mean, what do you have to do? You find the answers. How can it happen? What
Interesting.
is it? How could this happen?
Yeah.
Did you find all the answers? I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not easy, but for me, uh, it was, I decided to do it by really all means. And my next film is even more difficult. It's will deal with, a father who lost his son in the one of the wars, the latest one, the Lebanon one, and cannot cope with this, and you're running away, which in many ways it's a form of suicide.
Yeah.
And the little brother is, left alone to wonder who I am in my father's eyes, in my, being. Anyway, so it's a very complex. And if I have to do it for the same budget and go and do, fundraising, raising money like through the internet, so be it. So we don't
But
have
it
a
sounds like
choice.
an important film.
Yeah,
An
we don't have a
important
choice.
topic.
And
Yeah.
we look around now, and any violence, any friction, and look what happened now, in America with the Capitol. And I don't want to go into politics because some people it's okay to be pro-Trump. This is not the point even. The point is, what is the basis of our values?
Right.
You have a constitution, we don't. So as a society, we have to all the time ask what are the basic values that we would like to hold. And the best for me, I mean, the only way to do it is really through films. But sometimes you start a documentary and you don't get answers. Like, for example, when I did battered women, I went to every shelter and I did a lot of interviews, and it was like a very sad, tragic loop.
Mm,
And I just couldn't understand how um, a man who is not a stalker and not a psychopath, because this is not
mhm,
interesting, but
mhm,
an architect who works
mhm.
in an office, how can he say to his wife, if you're not mine, I'm going to kill you? What is it?
Yeah.
And what makes a woman develop a personality of battered woman? So I couldn't find it in a documentary, so I went and fictionalized it.
Mhm.
The same
So
with the conflict.
yes, that's what I wanted to ask you. You did that kind of research on battered women by talking with them. Did you do a similar kind of research in researching, especially the character of Alice or of other
Yes.
characters in My Dearest Enemy?
Yes. So first of all, I told you I did three documentaries when I spent a lot of times in Arab villages. I was in El
Mm-hmm,
Bire, which is near Ramallah, with a
mm-hmm,
family. I went to Neve Shalom, which is a place where Jews and Arab live together on the way to Jerusalem. And I found somebody there to, I tried to co-write, but I decided not to. But you see, but I did uh, show the script and got feedback
mm-hmm,
from Palestinian women, because there all the time this thread of, listen, I am Israeli. Without talking about politics, I am the how you say the conquer. I mean, I sit
the
on
enemy, the
the
occupier.
occupier, and can I relate or really dive into the soul, the mind, the veins of a Palestinian woman? And I want to tell you something interesting. I have now an internet show with my friend Tilly Charney. She, by the way,
Mm-hmm,
sometimes
mm-hmm,
comes to Florida. So we have this YouTube channel where we interview people just to think, keep thinking with this COVID, new
mm-hmm,
subject, new ideas.
mm-hmm.
So we talked with a writer which I really like, Edgar Carrot.
Oh, yes, I've read some of his work,
Yes, yes.
right?
And
Yes.
I asked him, can you write from a point of view of a woman?
Mhm.
He's a
And
man.
what did he say?
Of
Yes,
course,
right.
of course. And he gave examples. So I could actually, not completely, I'm sure, but I could dive and almost imagine myself, being a
Mhm.
Palestinian. And I
Uh-huh.
was there a lot. I was in the, I not joined, but I did one of my films was, one of the characters was a woman in Mahsom Watch. It's the women who go to the roadblocks in the West Bank,
Uh-huh. Yes.
and they stand there trying to see that everything will be okay. So I spent
Mm-hmm.
with them quite a bit of time. So I was very much aware of what's happening, in the West Bank,
Mm-hmm.
um, on different levels. So to answer to you, I don't believe you can write about anything if one, you're not doing your research.
Mm-hmm.
Two, if you are not listening
Right.
to the other with
Mm-hmm.
really listening. I mean, and three, you know, I don't know how to say it, but if you write or direct or act, and
Mm-hmm.
in many ways as an audience, somehow you have to be at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not your topic. It's
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with you. But if you cannot very early, when you start walking or listening or watching, if even if you are you are a part, you are not really, it's not your story.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot join it, at certain point and take the journey together with a character, then it's
You
nothing.
can't do it.
You
Right.
cannot do it.
Yeah.
So, actually, I must tell you that I guess really wanting the intent, really wanting to understand,
Mm-hmm.
what does it mean to be Palestinian woman? It's much more difficult, other things equal, than being a Jewish woman in Israel. It's
Uh-huh.
different.
Yeah.
And trying to really understand and not judge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
was not easy, but I couldn't write the script if I would judge
Right.
or if I would have
Right.
preconceived ideas, if I would not ask what if. So
Okay. So, all right.
that
So
was a long answer.
that's good. That's good. I have a lot of more general questions, but one thing that you said reminded me of a very specific question that I was going to save for later, but I'll ask it now and then we'll get back to other things. Um, you mentioned that it was really important for you to talk with a lot of Palestinian women and get their perspective because they would sort of at the outset view you as an occupier, that
Yes,
would, without getting to know them. And you
it's a
put
fact.
Maya in that position in the movie when when she photographs the people in the refugee camp that Alice is talking to. Now, Maya has already had that bad experience at when she comes to visit Alice after Alice's father dies, and the people are so suspicious of her. So when we saw the scene in the refugee camp, I thought to myself, did Alice tell these people in advance that the photographer is an Israeli Jew?
I don't think
And
so.
clearly she didn't. No,
No,
clearly
he
she
didn't.
didn't.
He didn't.
So how did you view that? I mean, was that a betrayal of Maya? It seemed to me in a way that it was. I mean, how did you view it as the writer and the filmmaker?
So, first of all, there are certain points, important points in the film when there is a betrayal.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Also later,
Yeah. Yeah.
whoever, it's not a spoiler because I hope people will
Yeah.
look at it.
Yes.
The Israeli goes, she's planning to go to the police
Right.
when she
Right.
even suspect.
Yeah.
And then, of course, at the last moment, she does call the police.
Right.
But also the Arab one, Alice, she has a huge secret. She
Yeah.
doesn't tell her
Right.
that she's meeting
Right.
her
Correct.
lover, that Maya knows, because she is the only one. Maya is the
Right.
only one who knows that her friend, the Arab, Alice's son, is a former lover. So it's kind of, so I think that because I guess I'm trying to understand why she didn't tell them.
Mm,
Um, for her, it was a kind of normal, the friendship.
mm,
What was not normal for the Arab one is in the beginning sitting on the fence or not getting involved. And once she
yeah.
came to Paris, she became politically involved.
Mhm.
And of
Right.
course, when she came back to Israel, um, I thought that that was negligence, that she put her friend in danger.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. And it was very interesting that she did that and that yet they remained friends.
Yes, but
Yeah.
well,
And
not for a
Maya's,
while. There was a
yeah,
friction, and then of course
yeah,
they made up.
yeah.
So there were
But
a lot of obstacles for this friendship.
right,
Their
right,
husbands, their families,
right, right.
the
But
son.
Maya's art became more political
Oh,
after that
no.
point.
I want to tell
And
you something. I don't know if she will be happy that I tell the story, but I will tell the story.
okay.
So I started to make a film about Aliza Olmert
Mm-hmm.
before her husband Ehud became prime minister,
Mm-hmm.
like 3 weeks before.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I wanted to make the film about her because she was so politically the opposite than her husband, Ehud
Mm,
Olmert, that I thought, what? How do you feel being in a place you don't want to be? She didn't want it to be in the public eye. She didn't want to
mm,
be the wife of a minister, of course, not of a prime minister. So what does it mean? So I started to do a film about her, and then
mm,
3 weeks later, her husband became prime minister, and I was there until he resigned.
mm-hmm.
What happened is that I was very interested is to look at her art because I think she's a wonderful artist.
Mm-hmm.
So she did a lot of, she had different styles, but one of them was she painted cypress,
Oh,
but they were green. It was
uh-huh.
beautiful. And then slowly there was darkness enter her paintings.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it became
Uh,
darker and darker, and we didn't have to talk politics because the paintings,
yeah, you could see
so
it.
at the end, before he resigned, and there was the Gaza war. So it was the Lebanon war and all the
Mhm,
investigation, and then there was the Gaza war, and then there are paintings or artwork, because she also dealt a lot with graffiti,
mhm,
became very violent, very
mhm,
violent. So
mhm.
that gave me an idea for my character. So I stole it actually. So
Oh,
yes, and then
interesting.
I thought, I didn't want to. You see, when I started, I don't know how it's today, but there was a time when most women, I don't know, here in America, somehow follow the politics of the husband. I don't want to make anybody mad, but my experience, when I grew up and,
Mhm,
until quite like 20 years ago, maybe, most women followed their
mhm,
husband's politics,
mhm,
right? Very few. Um, but she was a single woman, and I thought that when she explaining it, that she was so busy with actual life, being a single mother, that
mhm,
she had to just, just make money.
mhm,
So she did those paintings, about models and,
mhm,
beautiful models. And, that was really living in a bubble.
mhm.
And then without noticing, after Alice, the Arab one, comes back after 25 years, suddenly she is exposed to other narratives.
Mhm.
And it
Right.
filters into her collages.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have here very little, but you still have some, encounters, about politics, like in the refugee camp, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but in general, a lot of her change because if you write any drama and there is no change in the character, even if you start the same and you end the same, something in the journey you are telling make the person change, even from
Mhm.
even in like the fabulous film Lost in Translation.
Oh, yes.
Sofia
Right.
Coppola.
Right. Right.
There was the big change was at the end he smiles.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was huge for
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Yeah.
if you remember a Midnight Cowboy, that
Uh-huh.
everybody should see. But anyway, you had there a character at the end of the film, might put his arm around Dustin Hoffman on the floor,
Man. Right. Right. Rezo
just
Rizzo. Yeah.
hug somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So change
Yeah.
it can be very little,
Yeah.
you know.
So yeah, so another sort of question regarding art, and then I'll get back to making the film itself. I mean, it's clear that Maya's art becomes political. Towards the end, um, Maya says to Alice, "How can you teach literature in all those different languages, Arabic, Hebrew, English, French?" And Alice says, literature is literature, poetry is poetry. Did you mean there to be a little bit of irony there? Because yes, literature is literature, but literature is also political. Poetry is poetry, but poetry is also political.
Both are expression of human soul. So
Yeah, yeah,
if you think
yeah,
about it,
yeah.
and
And of course,
yeah,
at first, Maya gives Alice the Israeli women's poetry to read.
yes,
I think it's all tied together so
yes,
beautifully.
yes. But also, the fact that she's using Dalia Rabikovic. Now, I want to tell
Uh-huh.
you something. This is really a bit embarrassing. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of Israeli Arabs speaks, most of them speaks Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
We don't speak Arabic.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I
Yeah.
sometimes say if we would speak Arabic from the beginning, maybe it would be easier, to
Mm-hmm.
somehow. But
Right.
we don't speak Arabic. I studied in high school Arabic in Tel Aviv.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one sentence. And when I say it, nobody understands me because
Uh,
it's literally, you know.
yeah.
So they know and it's important to know the language,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Really
Right.
acknowledge the existence of the other.
Right.
We have to acknowledge a lot of things which we don't. If we'll acknowledge other things, and they will acknowledge, we should acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
it. They should acknowledge that we are a Jewish state, and we should acknowledge that, yes, something happened, in 48, and, we are aware of it, however, etc.
Right. Yeah. So now I know that you're a little frozen. Are you still speaking?
I'm
sorry.
speaking. Oh, yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. Yeah, now you're fine. I noticed that your cast and crew were Jewish and Arabic. And can you talk to us about what it was like being on that set with that very diverse group of actors and crew?
When you cannot keep life outside the set. So there were quite arguments. And there were, I don't like improvisations on the set. So before we shoot, I sit with the actors and we go over the script and the beats and the subtext and the meaning and the intent, whatever. And sometimes, in this case, I had to change very little because it became extremely important. Sometimes for Ali, sometimes for Maya, because the actress Hanan Khilou, she's fantastic. By the way, half of or most of the Arab actors are from Fauda.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. And in Fauda, even Alice, young Alice, is her daughter in Fauda.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah. Was that in the last season? Was that from the last season?
No, I think it's the first,
earlier,
second, something like this.
Whatever. I'm sorry.
But
okay, go on.
We had few tense moments on the set. For example, in the same scene of the refugee camps when they're out, Alice wanted to be much, to put some harsh sentences. Now, that's very interesting. There are things that I will never compare anything to Nazism or to Hitler. That's out of any equation. I even tell my students, you can, you can write about anything, everything, but you cannot praise Hitler in my class, which is okay. I don't know if I'm allowed to do it. But I tell them, if this is what you want to do, please go to another class, go to another professor. I mean, I just simply cannot deal with praising Hitler. But she wanted actually the Alice to really push it, which I couldn't do. You see, so I see it as a limitation of me, because I am an Israeli, as you cannot even imagine, as Israeli can be. I'm completely, my DNA is Israeli. I am completely identified with being an Israeli. I grew up which was important when the Israel was built for many years, really believe that we are the best and everything we do is just and right and correct. I mean, I don't know if you can build a country without being that, right? We didn't care what other nations think about it. I mean, everything they said was anti-Semitic, which of course is nonsense. You can disagree with the policy of a country, doesn't mean you are anti-Semitic. But she really wanted to push it a bit too much for me. But it entered to the set a few times. Your answer is
interesting, very interesting.
Yes, it did enter the set. But there was something, I think everybody on the set understood that maybe, and will not find an answer, of course. I can be a spoiler in a way, but so the last draft of the script, which was, I don't know, maybe a month before the shoot, again, I had to rewrite it for budget, many times, production considerations. So I was rewriting the scene when they get apart. I mean, the last scene between them, and suddenly a line came up, and I just didn't expect it.
And what was that line?
Well, we can be friends, but what about our kids? Do we have control? I mean, each one of us, we all have to ask these questions.
That's right.
And we look around, I wonder, we can even again, I go back to what happened now in the Capitol. I don't know about their
Oh my
parents.
God, yeah.
I don't know about their parents, how they, let's say they grew up, they went to, school in whatever they were, Minnesota or whatever, um, and went to high school and maybe went to college. And then maybe the parents didn't, you become an adult and you take your way, and how much, the values that you were brought up with really stays with you. I was
Well,
looking at them.
I'll just say one thing about that. Last night on CNN or MSNBC or one of those stations, they were interviewing children of those demonstrators,
Oh,
because there were a lot of middle-aged people and older who were in that insurrection, and their children are horrified. One high school student didn't want her identity to be shown, so she was sort of, blurred out. She said, they're using all of my college tuition for QAnon. So it's not really young people going against their parents. A lot of it is older people with children who don't know what's going on. I don't know if this will make the Miami Jewish Film Festival, but I thought it was interesting.
yeah, but it's not, a lot of this virus now, this time made us really maybe look more analytically. Like, for example, I saw many years ago, and I saw it few times, the bad, the good, and the ugly. No, 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 no. This with Clint Eastwood, when they're trying to find the treasure. But anyway, we have all
Yeah.
these westerns.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
The use of guns
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
and killing, and it's
Mhm.
glorified and stuff like this. And you look now in America, so many
Yeah.
guns, and so what are all this, shooting, and you try to think where it's come from. How do you correct? Like, for example, I'm trying to ask in Israel ourselves, like, for example, the friction between the religious and secular in Israel,
Yeah.
especially now, the Haredim and the
Mhm.
secular.
Mhm.
I mean, it's like becoming so wide, how can we bring it together again?
Yeah.
Um, so this is why you make films. I
Right.
actually should make my next film about that.
I was
I
wondering.
wonder. I
Yeah.
wonder. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think films, we can change in our own way every day with whoever we meet. Once we really understand, I don't know what's right and wrong. We can, but somehow to have a common moral ground that we can
Yeah.
we
Right.
can
A
connect.
common moral ground,
Yeah,
common sense of basics. What is right? What
yeah,
is wrong?
yeah.
Yeah.
I sometimes say, if all the world just believe the Ten Commandments, that's enough.
We do
In a
okay.
way, you don't have to do anything else. Just
Right.
so that was a long answer again, but
That's good. No,
we
I'm
keep
glad to
we
hear
must.
what
I
you have
think
to say.
Jewish film festivals, for many years, are a voice to questions, asking, trying to understand, different sides of us,
Mm-hmm.
not just of humans, but also about, you know, especially now, one of the things that I think a lot about what happened to the relationship of Israel to the Jewish community. Did it
Yeah.
change? How it changed?
Yeah. That's a
Uh,
really interesting issue. Yeah.
this is something that, we better try to think about it and rechannel our energy. And I think also, if we will have from both countries, get some thinkers together and vision, get a vision about the future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't happen from day one to tomorrow. We didn't even feel how the relationship of Israel and the Jewish community here changed.
Yeah.
And I think it
It
changed
happened very, very gradually.
very gradually. And the
Yeah.
young generations are actually, although we have this taglit, when they go to Israel,
Mm.
uh, high schools go to Israel.
Yeah, I know. Right. Birthright. Yeah.
I don't know who even checked if it's does something to their identity after two,
There,
3 years,
I
4 years?
don't know. It's become a little controversial in the United States. I don't I don't really want to get into that.
No, all I'm saying is no, no, no.
But
I'm just
yeah,
raising a question,
right.
and just
Yeah,
I know everybody, even in your audience, different people will think about
yeah,
different.
different things. I know. Again, this is just a personal thing, but you and I are around the same age. I visited
No,
Israel.
no, I'm much younger.
Yes, oh,
Yeah, yeah,
sorry,
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah. I'm
sorry.
much younger, much younger.
Well, maybe, but
And we can also stand
the
up and see
internet
who's
tells me
taller.
when you got your PhD, so you're busted.
Oh, I
But
was very young by the way. I was very
yes,
young, by the way.
I'm sure you were.
I
I'm
was
sure
very
you
young.
were. I'm sure you were, because that date, it's like, wow, yeah, she was young.
Yeah,
But in any event, I visited Israel many times throughout my life, and so in a very, very deep way, I love Israel. My views are very similar to the kinds of views that would be expressed in a film such as My Dearest Enemy. So you can understand what I'm saying. That
you're vanishing with the sound. Your
I'm
sound.
sorry, that my views about Israel are the kinds of views that would look for friendship between
Yes,
Israeli Jews
that's all you
and
need.
Israeli Palestinians, right? But I have to tell you that the most wonderful thing, one of the most wonderful things for me watching the film, was seeing the landscape, that dry, bright landscape, dusty. And it was like, oh my God, I could smell the air.
Yes,
And I don't think younger people, apart from Birthright, I don't know, maybe they get it from Birthright, but younger people need to have an experience of Israel
right.
as a country,
Yes,
as a place to be, as a place to study. And I
yes.
do think that Jewish film festivals and Israeli film festivals are very helpful
Very.
in that regard,
Yes,
in showing, first of all, that there is diversity of opinion in
yes,
Israel. That, I mean, one of the issues with Birthright that has been discussed is that it has a clear narrative, and young people often don't buy it. And the films, like all works of art, show the complexities
yes. If not, it's
of
not. It's
Israeli
nothing.
life,
Not was nothing.
and I think help solidify that feeling of attachment to a place that is important. Anyway,
Yes.
enough from me.
No,
Is there
no.
anything else that you would like to say before we close this interview?
No, I just want to make sure that to know that you will know how much I think the Jewish film festival are so important. Especially, don't forget that the film industry in Israel went through stages. So in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, it was almost a national kind of, and then when it became personal. And if you look now at the films that were this year,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it are personal. It's about autistic child with his
Mm-hmm.
father. It's about no, Asia, the one that about a girl. I think she's getting some kind of an MS and a relationship. She's Russian,
Mm-hmm.
immigrant to Israel. Uh, but somehow the Jewish Film Festival are actually really representing quite a vast slice of life of Israel.
Yes,
So at the end of
absolutely.
every festival, when you finish watching the films, you really come to understand the fabric of and the people and the way they laugh and cry and what they think and their attitudes. And I think it's really very important. But as long you see, I don't judge even. I don't want to judge anybody. I just want somehow to understand. If you don't, and all the films I'm sure that you are showing, show the complexity, whatever stories they tell. Otherwise, for me, it's propaganda. If you just do a one
Right.
side, doesn't
Exactly.
matter which side, it's or if you come with the preconceived ideas and you preach it, who cares what you think? It's
Mm.
more, how you go in a journey together with your character.
Right.
Because the loyalty, I think, of every filmmaker or writer is to the story and to his characters, not him.
Exactly.
It's not me. So yes, so I first of all, I'm very happy you took the film, and especially, I'm telling you, I really fought to make it. I'm telling the truth. It was
Well,
I fought to make it.
I'm very glad you did.
Yes, me too.
Yes.
And I'm sorry I cannot come because I will not go on a plane.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
next year, the 25th annual
Yes, and
Miami
you know,
Jewish
I'm in
Film
Israel,
Festival.
except the COVID, I'm in Israel December, January, and May, June, and July, August.
Mhm.
So if you come to Israel or anybody of your audience, you know, I would be glad to have coffee.
Thank you. And thank you so much for talking
Thank
with
you.
us
Thank
today. It
you.
was a pleasure.
Okay,
And
wonderful.
thank you for this marvelous film, My Dearest Enemy. And to those of you who are watching, please continue to watch the films in this Jewish Film Festival. And I hope that Tzipi Trope will have another film for us next year too,
I
and we'll
hope
be
so.
here in
I'm writing
person.
it now.
Okay, very good.
Okay,
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much.
much.